Emotional public appeal today after the disappearance of a pensioner from his home in St Austell.
74-year-old David Adams hasn't been seen for more than 2 weeks since July the 3rd. Officers say his disappearance is completely out of character.
His family are beside themselves with worry.
I want him to come back home. This is so well.
But that's the last record police have of him.
He was a very happy, outgoing person, well liked by everyone. I never expected what was in front of us, really.
A man that enjoyed his hobbies, and his hobbies was always sorting out his workshop, he would take things apart, and little things that came from, like, say, a wash machine or anything, he would place in tins so that he could reuse anything again. He never wasted any materials.
He was an auto electrician by trade and loved his work. Always liked cars, mending his own cars, but it was always an auto electrician all his life, right up until his retirement. After his retirement, he spent a lot of time at home in the garden and took up really watching different birds in the garden and things like that.
My mum was in the kitchen just prepping the end of the food that she was making, and my son and myself were sitting around the table. My dad had decided, assumably he had gone up to go to the toilet prior his meal.
And he seemed very quiet, and I said to him, "Dave, are you all right?" He said, "Yeah, I'm fine." But he seemed to have been like wandering around the house.
Prior to that, my dad said, "Oh, I don't want it." So whilst he was up there, we had sat around the table, just started to eat our meal, and we heard like the cupboard door go in the hallway.
And my daughter said, "I think the front door's gone, Mum." So anyway, I went out and had a look, and he had gone out the front door, but there was I couldn't see him anywhere.
You know, the door was locked, so she quickly ran upstairs to see if my dad was upstairs. He had gone.
So I rushed out then and had a look around to see if I could find him. And I come back because my daughter was still in the house. And she said, "Look, I'll take the car and go out and have a look." But he was nowhere to be seen, nowhere. And, it was great, getting quite worried about him, really. And that's when the police got involved, really, then.
The police advised us to deal with the Missing People charity to help us out with flyers, and also they were a great help and lifeline towards the support for the family during a crisis that we were all going through, and it got the word around all over the country to see if we could find him. I even lost friends, I feel, through wanting to rely on them for help. So in a way I lost friends because I felt like I was asking more from them, which in my case I probably would have helped them if it was them in trouble and need. But obviously you do lose friends, people feel you're using them too much. But it was a cry for help at that time.
We couldn't leave the house because the police was here all the time. They were searching. They even went up in the loft looking and pulled out the bath, and then they was going through paperwork here. And then I suppose about after 2 weeks we could go out ourselves and start searching. We searched most of all the areas around the town, really.
We had another situation when the police contacted us, and they said that they had found a chap that was from Truro. They found him in a shed in Truro, I believe, and they said we would have to go down and see him in Trellis because we feel it could be your dad. So this man had only hours to live, and me and my mum was taken down with a police escort to Trellisk Hospital in the intensive care unit where the gentleman was actually dying, and we went in one by one on our own to see if it was my dad, and it was a situation I've never been in my life really. So I went in first and I went to see who it was, and I went in there, and the gentleman, he'd blown up so much with his face. And because I hadn't seen my dad for so long and the pressure, I just couldn't remember what my dad looked like, and I just thought, is this my dad or not? And I just couldn't tell.
It was one Wednesday evening, I think, and the police lady, she phoned us to say that could she come over to see us. And I said then to my daughter, this ain't good news. And she come to say that some holiday maker had found him, and found him up at Tremina, a place up there where there was a derelict sort of place, and he was up there doing some filming, and he came across David, and she gave the description and said what he was wearing and everything, and said that it was David they had found. And it was quite distressing that evening, you know, to think it had come to an end. We knew then it was final, that we would never ever find him alive.
It was a very sad moment, but it was also in a way a form of relief that we had found him, because having someone missing for so long and not knowing where they are, I think is worse than actually having found someone and burying them. It just felt that we had some form of conclusion, and even though he wasn't with us and alive, we had a form of an ending, knowing that he was home, brought home and buried. Whoever's in your life that's dear to you, always care for them, always say goodnight or goodbye, but never leave it untouched, an argument or anything like that, because at the end of the day, they could be out of your life in an instant, and you wish you had said the dear things to them, and you look back and you think every day is just as important as the next one coming along. But life still is hard, but we carry on.
We like things little, but we love things big. Yeah, I grew out of it and you just fit right in. Designed to find what is the space inside my mind. Philosophy of nothing in plain sight. Something so familiar.